Good morning. And now for something totally different. How do you like that title, Smoke on the Water? I think we kind of all know what that means. What I'm going to talk about today is algorithms, scoring metrics. We have a lot of excess scoring in this country, and I'm going to touch on some of that, and especially in the healthcare world. Maybe some of these are some topics that have never been discussed in the fashion that I'm going to talk about them, but anyway, don't throw tomatoes at me. It's ugly stuff, but it's truthful, and it's stuff that we need to be aware of. I find today that there's too many folks out there living in virtual world values, and we need to get back to the real world. You can't spend your life on Facebook with only Facebook friends. You need to have real people out there to talk to. So anyway, I talk a lot about that too, because it messes with people's minds. Where do you find? Where's the real world anymore? And the virtual world will always crash at some point in time, and then you're left with the real world. Okay, so I have my little thing here. Who is the medical quack? Okay, well, my last name is Duck, so obviously, what better name for a blog? It was just kind of a natural and everything here for me. I'm non-clinical, of course. I got into this business basically writing software. My background before this was not anywhere near healthcare. I was in the logistics business. So I came from a business to where, with transportation firms, they had devices where they would take a pallet of a freight out on the dock and shoot the whole pro number, make a manifest. So I came from a very automated business into healthcare, which was a bit of a change. But it actually was kind of a good thing because I had some background, and then I saw a lot of ways to help people as well. And of course, you don't take the exact same technologies, you have to modify, but you can take maybe a little bit of an idea here, there, and the next one that comes around. So that's kind of how I got into this. For about 10 years, my other half was a primary care doctor, so that's how I got into being a programmer too. It kind of, just things in life just kind of work that way, don't they? Basically, he wanted me to see if I could find a medical record system that was simple enough for him to use. And this was back in the early days, and there were a lot of small developers like myself before the government got involved, before all the big corporations got involved. And there was a site out there for many years called EMR Update. And myself, other developers, and doctors who were also developers or just interested doctors, we would all converse on there. And it was a very, very useful site because we all were working on the same goal. Again, we just wanted to make a useful tool for doctors to use, something that was better than a piece of paper where you could access it, but you could print it if you wanted, and bring your labs in from LabCorp and Quest, and that was kind of it. Do e-prescribing and pretty basic. But what happened is that all got mutated, of course, when the corporations moved in. When you had the big companies like GE, Cerner, Epic, when they all moved in. And the insurance companies. And they worked together, of course. It all became one big, monstrous mess. And doctors do. I spend a lot of time today entering information into the medical record system. Like was said earlier, the doctor walks in, he looks at the computer first before he looks at the patient. Well, after a while, we kind of, and it's sad, we almost become numb sometimes. It's like, well, I can look at that computer and growl at it. It's not going to growl back, but I can't do that to the patient. But anyway, but I think that's sometimes why, that occurs. And we're going to talk about power of algorithms. Does everybody hate that word? I think most people are starting to hate this word. There are good algorithms out there as well as the bad ones, but today I'm going to focus on the ones that are kind of out of control. When you use, drug companies use algorithms to create drugs and so on and so forth. That's a good use for them there. I mean, they're doing research and doing things that really count to help patients, doctors, all of us. But when they get into management, that's another side of the algorithmic business. And, you don't need to refine that down to the levels at what they've done. It also is a great money-making opportunity for corporations today. So in the words of Bill Gates, he said, software is nothing but algorithms working together. That's all it is. Again, I used to write software, and it's funny, back in the early days, I used to sit there and say, I could do this and nobody would ever notice. I could do this over here and nobody would ever notice. Of course, I never act on it. I mean, we all have thoughts of, passing thoughts like that when we're doing things. But I don't know, it just made me start thinking way back years ago, what if people cheat with their software? What if they start cheating? The person using it, they can't see the code that's running. They have no idea. They just have to take the software developer's word for it, like, trust me. And, there's a certain amount of auditing you can do if it's going to kick out some results that are not, anywhere near adequate. Yeah. But, I mean, there's a lot of things, numerical, mathematical, they can cheat on, and they do. We saw it with Volkswagen. They cheated on their algorithms. That was probably one of the biggest, most prominent cases that hit the news. But it's something to remember. They do that. And when it comes to CEOs or whatever not knowing about it, that could be true. All they care about is make sure the shareholders are getting paid. Don't tell me what you're doing over there. If you have to, do that, I don't understand it anyway. Just do what you got to do. So that does happen out there. And algorithms are just computer code. Nothing more than that. It's not magic. It's not something that falls out of the sky to fix something. Still requires humans and machines now to write, code. With machine learning, machine learning is interesting. It has its ups and its downs. This is kind of funny story. I'll tell you about it. A few years ago, Google. All of a sudden, I went on to my blog one day, and my account was turned off. Google turned me off. So anyway, I'm like, I mean, there was nothing, nothing unusual to predicate such. So anyway, I get the little notice that, well, you can click here and, go respond and find out, what happened. Okay, so I do. And so anyway, I go on there and the message, again, this is computer generated from Google coming back to me. It says, well, you are not being machine compliant. And I said, what? So anyway, algorithms all have flaws. Well, what had happened was several years or so ago, Google's algorithm had not learned enough yet. We all hear about machine learning. So anyway, it thought my last name, Duck, they thought it was a fowl, a bird. A bird can't have a blog, okay? So this is spam. We got to knock this one out of there. So that's what happened to me, and I thought, man, this is very entertaining. So MIT got all over it, and a few others that said, look at this big corporation just bullying this little person out there. But the story's kind of comical because of my last name being Duck, of course. But that's what can happen with machine learning when it goes rogue, and something just to keep in mind. Attack of the killer algorithms. That's one of my little coins. I wrote a series of blog posts about 5 years or so ago, about 60 some of them, giving everyday examples as to what happens when you're denied access to a loan, a drug, a school, you name it. Today out there, it's not humans making a lot of these decisions, it's algorithms. They're scoring people. And what we need to pay attention to is who's creating these scoring systems? What's going on out there? When you don't understand something, somebody gives you a score you don't understand, ask a question. This blind faith and having faith, in algorithms has got to stop. You just can't say, oh, okay, I was told this and that's the way it is. Well, it might be wrong. And after a while, it can work on your own common sense. You read something and say, well, I don't think that's right, but it said. Well, if you've got a question, go ask. In the software world today, it's not as simple as it used to be. They used to write a program, and now they write what they call platforms. So you have one platform here, and then John comes along, and he writes his code here. Mary comes along, writes hers here, and Sue writes hers here. And then all of a sudden, on these platforms, the code from one to the other, they all have to work together, okay? I would go crazy if I had to write for a platform. When I wrote my software, I was responsible for everything. I could go back and debug it, the whole thing. And if there was a mistake, I went back and fixed it. But this is a problem you see out there right now with these platforms. Is it in Mary's level, or did Sue mess up, or when they go to fix it? And so we get frustrated. Why is it taking so long? What's the problem here? Why do we have so many more bugs today? That's the ingenious software platform we're dealing with today. It's not going away, but I just thought I would toss that out there and just, give you a little insight as to what's going on. Now, I'll come back to this a little later, but I put a link to one of my blog posts on there about it's time to look at some of the proprietary code running in the U.S. Too many companies and banks are playing techno-god. So in other words, trust me, my algos are correct. Well, we've seen that on Wall Street how many times, for one example? And I go back to, again, people cheating with software. They do it. They do it. When there's money involved, they do it, especially when you can take your whole program and dump it into what is called a compiler that debugs it and locks it up, basically. Nobody else gets to see your source code. But you can go out and market it and say, hey, it does this. No, it doesn't do that, although it might. You'll never know. Okay, and here's another post too, and this is something I've been trying to get people's attention on. I call it a one-trick algo world out there. Algo is an abbreviation for the word algorithm, if you haven't figured that one out yet. And actually, they've been trying to bring up some type of privacy protection for years, and it's not worked. Why? Oh, in the software world, programmers get kind of stupid sometimes. They say, okay, we've made some errors and there's some evil stuff out here. We're just going to create another program that can root these out with more algorithms. Okay, and that one stops working, and then John comes along. We got another one here. And after a while, what have you done? You've just created another mountain of algorithms. Sure, we need those, and sure, we need some of those, like anti-fraud or whatever. But you got to look at the systematic progress of it, what's being done. Well, everybody wants privacy. I want privacy. You want privacy. Everybody's selling our data out there today. Credit card companies are selling all your transactions. Don't go to the grocery store and put, 4 gallons of vodka on your credit card, for God's sakes. Your insurance company will be risk assessing you for, having an alcohol problem. Believe me, they do this, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But all your items like that are being analyzed. Behavior analytics, that's the big buzzword out there. Everybody wants to know how you're going to behave. Why? So they can predict how you're going to behave. And a lot of times, as we sadly saw in Las Vegas, you can't predict that all the time. But they think that they can, predict what we're going to do and so on and so forth. And many times they get it wrong. But I think we should license every doggone company out there that's selling personal data. They should have to get a license. When you stop and think about it, you guys have to get a license. Why should they be able to sell data without getting a license? The government allows it to happen. Okay? They're selling our personal data and they're making a profit off of it. And they're scoring us in the process. Why shouldn't they have to be required to get a license? Because we don't know who they are. We know the big ones are Facebook, Google, the credit agencies. There's thousands of other small ones you don't know about. Argus Analytics is one of them. Argus Analytics buys all your credit card data and sells it to every doggone health insurer out there. And they score you as well. Who's ever heard of Argus? Till I brought it up. But there's thousands of them out there like that. We should be able to know who they are, and they should have to have a license and basically spell out what kind of data they're selling. Because when a company gets it wrong and you're scored and the data is, you're screwed. Where do you go? I don't know. You go back to where you think it's came from, but sometimes you just really don't know. So that's why I say a licensing system of some sort. They'll never be able to get any software regulation done without a license, because you have to identify who all the players are first. If you don't know who the players are, how can you regulate? I mean, I think that's pretty easy. That's pretty easy and common sense. Okay, and back in 2009, I actually wrote a blog post that said that, does the U.S. need something like a Department of Algorithms? I was just starting to end my coding career and everything at the time, and I thought, it's if people are out there cheating, and I saw it in the financial market big time, it's like, this is only going to get worse if there isn't something out there to keep some ethics into the art of coding. So, and today, We almost have none. So I started calling it the attack of the killer algorithms. And that's you can Google that and find that out there. What's a quant? Anybody hear of a quant? Oh, okay. Learn that word. Learn it well, because they're working at they call them specialized actuaries. They're working at health insurance companies. A quant is what they call a quantitative analyst. They came from Wall Street. Okay, that's where they originated. That's and actually, if you go to my blog, there's 4 videos in the footer of my blog, and one of them is a documentary about quants. It's a few years old, but it's still very good. And they tell you what's going on with some of the nonsense and the coding and so on and so forth. But these quants now are all working at health insurance companies. Not only there, they're working at pharmacy benefit management companies. They're working at drug companies. They're working everywhere. Some of these models that they're developing, I mean, are math and computer code. They do both. That's why they're in such demand. And they can take nonsense and make it look like it's actually something. I mean, not all the time they're doing that, of course, but they can. And they get out there in a little virtual land too sometimes. And if it can make money, CEOs just usually say, yeah, go with it. So anyway, yeah, the actuaries have pretty much moved out. The quants have moved in, and basically the quant is telling the actuary, give me that model. It's my model now because I needed to tie it to the stock price. Okay, so yeah, insurance companies or insurance policies we're buying today, yep, they're tied to the price of the stock. They must be productive. That's not what insurance was set up to be years ago, but that's what it's evolved to. Okay, so I kind of jumped ahead of myself here a little bit, but anyway, again, quants are mathematicians who also write computer code. The financial models, a lot of them are used in healthcare. They just tweak them, especially health insurance companies. They're going to use financial models and bring them into, healthcare if they can make a profit. And all models, though, too. Some models don't require math, but most of the time anymore, all of them are using computer code and algorithms because that's where the power is at. The people that are having to use them and click here and click there, that includes me. I don't get to see what's on the other side. None of us do. We're just a plain old captive audience. Okay? They're not necessarily good for care. Some of them, as we've heard, discussions on this evening, or this morning, sorry, you have big companies like Optum. That's all they do. Algorithms made that entire company. And I've got a few slides on them down the road here. But basically, doctors are being managed by algorithms. They're scored. And I'll go into this a little bit more too. Medication adherence prediction scores. It's been going on for a few years. Not too many people know it's out there. But, I mean, it's open on the web. You can go read about it. Because the pharmacy benefit managers, also known as a PBM, like to brag about it. But basically what they do is they have 300 metrics that score patients to predict if you're going to take your meds. And some of these are just total out-and-out BS metrics, okay? We know a few of them because they let a few out of the bag. One of them is if you're a male going to a female doctor, bad. That's one ding against your score. Another thing, do you have kids in the home? Oh, another ding, they're going to distract you from taking your meds. Bullshit metrics. But they're doing this. Every time you go fill a prescription, pharmacy benefit management companies are running a scoring number on you, predicting whether or not you're going to take your meds or not. I mean, that affects all of us, whether we are a doctor, patient, or whatever. We all get a prescription from time to time. So I've got the next slide up. We'll tell you a little bit more about that. Okay, I took a screenshot right there off the Express Scripts page, okay? Yeah, they're bragging about it. I went on there and read their program. It's right out there. And it's interesting to see how the pharmacy benefit management business started. We come back to our old friends at United Healthcare again. They started that back in 1976. It was a company called Diversified Pharmaceuticals, and which was sold to a drug company, Smith Klein Beecham. And Medco also had a PBM for a while there. Then it became a big scare that drug companies should not have pharmacy benefit management companies, okay? So what do? They sell it to an insurance company, or a pharmacy benefit management company, another one, Express Scripts, okay? So anyway, these scoring algorithms were actually taken in by Express Scripts in 2010. They were written by a company called Ingenix, which is now Optum. I don't know if everybody remembers the 2009 lawsuits out of network short pay, Ingenix. Former CMS acting director Andy Slavitt, CEO, Ingenix. Pay attention to some of these ties here because they all kind of lead to one place all the time. And again, this is not to be confused with actual monitoring. I know there is some monitoring going on to where they check and see, did the patient refill it? They check and see, I would consider that a normal monitoring thing, just to check and see if they filled their prescription. But when they get into these 300 metrics, of course, they're all secret. This is a big black box. FICO. They also do medication adherence prediction scoring. What the heck, they do all our credit stuff, right? Oh, they got into this business and produced and bought a revenue cycling company here a few years or so ago. Yeah, I've spoken out about this, and so has Pam Dixon at the World Privacy Forum. Yeah, why is FICO doing medication adherence prediction scores? They had this wild dream one day. They wanted everybody to run around with their phone and show what their predictions were. Not working too well. Now this is I like to have you take a look at this screen. Get paid to drink. Okay, this is an app for your phone, and it's created by the same company that runs Script Relief, a big RX discount card business. Been around for years. Loeb out of New York City, right across from Trump Tower back there. Well, it's kind of interesting because what they do is they get all kinds of behavioral data on people who drink. Oh, you send your receipts in. Oh, and guess what? They send you money back. What's stopping them from telling your insurance company about this? Nothing. Excess scoring and privacy in healthcare. Okay. Health grades. I've had a ball with health grades for years. They are terrible. I mean, one time I even had the AMA call me up and interview me several years ago. I said, they got too many dead doctors on there. What's up with this? I said, why all these dead doctors? And actually, how I got onto that was one of my former OBGYN I used to go to. She had passed away, and she was still on there. And actually, I called her office, and they couldn't even get rid of their old phone number. She was very popular, by the way. And her surviving husband said, yeah, I had to put the number back up to redirect people. It became such a hassle. Why? She was still on health grades, and people were, consumers were going there. So, yeah, they got a lot of dead doctors on there. One of my favorites, though, is there was a hospital in Long Beach, Pacific Medical Care. Health grades left that on there forever, even after it had gone to trial. That was the place that was putting fake screws. The hospital was putting fake screws in patients' backs. And health grades, even after a year or two after the lawsuit and the CEO goes to jail, still had them on there with 5 stars. Don't trust that. Okay. This is a little bit about what happens at the pharmacy. We all hate the pay-for-performance stuff, and most of you folks are away from that, but there's still those that are, in that environment. But the pharmacists are also working on pay-for-performance. They have a program called Equip. Do you know that pharmacist, and the next screen will show it a little more clear, they actually have to keep patients in certain percentiles with this report, okay? You can see what they have right there, the little screen that shows you what they see, okay? I have pharmacists call me up once in a while too. And she says, this really disturbs me. She says, in order to meet my goals, I have to start hustling everybody that comes in here that has diabetes to ask their doctor about a statin prescription. She says, why am I being forced to do this to meet my metrics here? I said, that's a really good question. But again, it's a push of pharma and so on and so forth. But that's kind of a little insight as to what goes on at the other end. That's why sometimes you have the pharmacist may seem like they're grabbing the patient by the jugular at times. They're being pushed to meet these metrics. And believe me, they don't like it. Okay, here we go. I call them the cartel. They're the algorithm cartel, United Healthcare, Optum. Actually, too, I have a couple of people that are doing a couple documentaries about the NHS in the UK, and they said, yeah, our big problem over here is what same thing you guys have with there in the US. Nobody knows what an Optum is. What's an Optum? We have to tell people. It's not insurance. They're out there managing people. They're buying up doctors. They're running software. They're running everything. So anyway, that'll be, I guess, down the road, whatever. But here's another link, too, with the DOJ whistleblower suits against United Healthcare. Okay, risk fiddling. That's what I call it, risk fiddling algorithms. And so that's going to be a very tough, I hope DOJ wins by all means, because we all kind of have a pretty good idea. If there's a chance for somebody to risk fiddle some algorithms and make some money, they'll probably do it. They'll probably do it. Okay, and this is a little bit about some of the businesses that United Healthcare does business with. ARP, do you know that ARP gets 80% of their revenue from United Healthcare? I don't call that a consumer advocate. They do such things too. They have see that High Health Innovations down there? That's a subsidiary of United Healthcare that sells cheap hearing aids from China. They sell them on ARP. And Senator Warren just got a law passed to make it easier to buy hearing aids over the counter. Well, I think she's pretty close to United Healthcare because they made her daughter very wealthy. Her daughter and former CMS director Andy Slavitt sold their first RX discount card business to United Healthcare in 1999. So it made them quite wealthy. So I always kind of wonder about that. What was her real motivation of all of a sudden going after hearing aids? Okay, let's look at some of their different businesses they own. Helios Workman's Comp, they own that. Evercare, Hospice, they own that. LHI, huge division of United Healthcare. They do all the VA disability evaluations, Department of Defense work. Okay, anybody gone to Quest Labs recently? United Healthcare is doing all the billing for Optum Labs. Got that. Optum has a bank, Optum Bank for HSAs. Thank goodness they have some competition out there. Chinagate, another subsidiary. We don't know too much about that one. Okay, when we talked, I heard somebody talk earlier about all the doctors being bought up. MedExpress, we don't have them out here in the West Coast, but back east, yeah, that's all owned by United Healthcare. Of course, they put OptimrX, their PBM in there to disperse prescriptions so they can get all the money, the DIR money as they call it. Alere Management, that was another one. The advisory board, which is now coming under Optum United Healthcare, huge. They've got files and profiles on the doctors like it almost scare you. And the doctor groups, here's just a few. Monarch, where I live in the OC down there. They run half of Orange County medicine down there. Of course, United Healthcare Optum is also the Medicaid contractor in Orange County too. So it's the Optima Manifesto in the OC. Does this scare you? It should. This is a patent, United Healthcare patent. It was done in 2015. Basically, it's a social media healthcare analytics patent. What they're doing is they're going to take all your information that's on the web, social network, they're putting it on their servers and running against your claims, profiling. OptimrX, they have 4 revenue reporting streams at United Healthcare. That's their biggest, making money off the drug part of it. They bought Catamaran not too long ago. They're also invading electronic medical records right now. They're trying to get doctors to talk them into giving your patient a discount through this program that your medical record can hook up to. It's OptimrX, and it gives takes away the ability for the patient to ask for a cash discount when they go to the pharmacy. Be wary of that. All scripts, of course, is Optum's EMR of choice, but there's others in there. You always see anything with Quest Labs in there. They've got their Care 360 thing. Okay, this is a picture of what I took in Huntington Beach. This is what an Optum office looks like. You don't want your office looking like that someday. I don't. But they're starting to move in and take over clinics, doctors that are losing money, not making money, whatever, because they're tied up in so much paperwork they can't keep up and with all the regulations. Average network, in-network doctor for United Healthcare averages about 15% less than Medicare on their pay. They use algorithms to do that. Think tanks. What good are they anymore? None. Nobody uses them, okay? Commonwealth Fund, I just want a little blurb on that. Simon Stevens, who runs the NHS, who came from United Healthcare, sits on the board of the Commonwealth Fund. Basically, they were started by the Harkness Fund in New York years ago to actually do real philanthropy. They don't anymore. They just kind of sit there and suck on the endowment. Lois Quam, who wrote Hillary Care, while Bill Clinton was in the White House, she's on the board over there. So it doesn't look like we're getting any benefits out of any think tanks these days. Okay, these are some things to read, some conclusions and thoughts. The World Privacy Forum, which I mentioned earlier, The Scoring of America, she wrote that, they wrote that a few years or so ago. It's very good. It'll tell you how everybody and anybody is being scored. I mean, the minute you walk out the door, you're being scored. And a couple good books to read. Kathy O'Neill, Weapons of Math Destruction. It's a few months old. It's been out there. I communicate once in a while with Kathy. She's doing great. Former Wall Street quant. She knows her stuff. But she's on our side now. Another good book, Adam Tanner, Our Bodies, Our Data. And he goes into also telling you some really in-depth detail on the data selling business in the healthcare end. Okay, and that's it. Thank you very much.